All right, so I'm here with Drew, the CFO for Security Centric, and we are just having a quick catch up talking about cybersecurity insurance as a follow up to our article that went up on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago now. So Drew, I just wanted to sort of start with some of the areas that maybe we didn't cover in the article that you've seen in your role, and looking at the financial area and seeing some insurance forms that come in. Some of the areas that you're seeing pop up and maybe of interest to our audience.
Yeah, well, from what I've seen over the last few years is probably a lot more focus on coverage for the small to medium sized market.
Yep.
You know, back in the day, it used to be sort of, you know, an add-on claim you'd look at, policy you'd look at for sort of larger enterprises. But it's become much more focused on that small to medium. They're asking the same kind of questions, and they're really relying on like a certain amount of coverage for that level.
Yeah, a lot of detail and technical requirements we're seeing. I mean, that's one of the things we covered quite heavily in the article is around the technical security components, like having things like a SOC, the right acronyms, MDR, EDR, anti-malware stuff sort of mandatory regardless of anything else. But it's the big ticket items that we're seeing that for small organizations, running a SOC internally, almost impossible. Massive cost sink. Having the personnel is going to be really crazy to hire those people.
It's a hard sell for the small businesses as well,
for sure.
Especially, you know, the cost. It's something that they don't see necessarily is required. So I think finding that balance, you know, between risk versus you actually covered is very important.
For sure. So a managed SOC is a good idea there, where you outsource that, get the benefit of scalability of like the vendors that offer SOC. Is a good idea. Something I think we mentioned off camera previously is the soft areas of security that we're seeing. A lot of claims you mentioned. I might let you talk about that, about where the claims are coming from, what's causing the claims to occur.
Yeah, well, interestingly, a lot of the claims that I've heard still being made, actually, a significant amount are still actually from non-malicious intent, so internal error, which, you know, definitely should. It is covered in certain policies, but it's an area that might not necessarily be front of mind for someone looking to renew.
And I mean, it's a common thing. I mean, it's from a governance, risk and compliance standpoint, human error is one of the major causes of any security incident a lot of the time. So it makes a lot of sense that a lot of claims are being triggered because someone makes a mistake inadvertently, outside of being malicious and trying to cause problems. What we're seeing to handle that, and we're even seeing it in the insurance questionnaires. I mean, I know you've seen them. I see them in my role as a VCISO quite often. We're seeing requirements to have robust security awareness training, phishing simulation, and having that more than an annual basis is best. Multimodal approaches, having in-person training, online check-ins, knowledge checks, that sort of thing, will help mitigate that, reduce the likelihood of someone making a mistake.
Exactly.
Because it's front of mind. And that sort of tailors into having incident response plans as well, testing your communication. So if there is an incident, and we keep saying that it's more than likely that every organization at some point will have an incident, that you're able to mitigate and manage that incident effectively and minimize the damage, and then potentially not having to make a claim.
That's right.
All of that adds up.
Exactly.
Saves money.
Adds up for sure, because these damages, they can be long-term as well. Like, you'll get the first initial potential breach, problems there, but the flow-on effect can be years and years if it's a large-scale one.
Long-term reputational damage can kill a business in the long run more than paying a fine or something like that. Long-term rep, if you don't sell any more business, you don't sell any more product, services, that's the death knell. So just going back to the small, medium enterprises that you're seeing get asked these insurance questions and have requirements that require all of these technical bits and pieces. As a CFO, say in your role, what are you seeing as like the best spend for a budget there? Like, where should they be focusing?
Yeah, well, the thing that turns off a lot of the small to medium businesses is the policy premium cost, right? So they can be a bit of sticker shock when you first receive them if you've got absolutely no coverage. So a lot of areas that will give you peace of mind if you want the coverage, right? But you can really scale back that you can really scale back the premium cost if you've got certain coverage through cybersecurity.
Preventative controls, right?
Exactly.
More than, previously, some of the forms you've seen like a few years ago would be very much tick box. They're not really expecting, I don't think insurers are really expecting your security maturity to be that flash.
No.
But then obviously we've had the endless amount of breaches and incidents we see and insurance payouts.
Yep.
That's led to them to be preventative. You almost, if you had all the controls an insurer asked you for, you're in a really good spot. You could argue you don't need insurance.
That's right.
But then as we know, you definitely know that boards, executives want to have insurance because it's not necessarily old school mentality, but it's sort of that safety net that they want to have insurance there.
You're right.
In case something goes wrong.
You're right. You're 100% right. They used to be just a tick box. Do you have this? Yes or no. Do you have that? Yes or no. These days, they're asking you, a whole suite of questions.
Oh, yeah.
To the point where most people that are just in the finance department, for example, will have to go and get advice on that.
Yeah.
Because they just don't know. Especially if they're that small to medium range again.
Yeah. Can be difficult. I mean, we've got a lot of experience at Security Centric. A number of our clients come straight to us and say, hey, we've got an insurance. Help us fill this out. And to be honest, there's a lot of areas that we're seeing as big ticket items that you will get rejected for insurance, basically. You'll be denied coverage.
Yes.
The ones you're seeing, as you mentioned earlier, things like having a SOC or a SOC adjacent type service, at least SIEM, so you can identify when there's been an incident, and then having some of those, using the term soft security again, the security awareness components, having incident response plans, having those tested, being able to sort of demonstrate that you could respond and identify an incident and you know how to manage it is something that we're seeing is strongly looked for now. And it's true. We're seeing people being rejected for coverage that would have previously easily, here you go, here's your coverage, good to go, just waiting for an incident to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's so thorough these days that a lot of people would look at them and go, "Oh, that's a lot.
Too much.
Too much.
Yeah, way too much.
Like the same scrutiny, you're getting the same scrutiny at the small level than you are if you're in the top end of town. They're asking you the same questions. Where in the past, it'd be sort of, if you were under a certain amount of turnover, don't worry about those questions. Just answer these ones here.
Yeah, I think it's sort of showing that the ramifications of breaches for small organizations can flow along and impact large organizations, and then your claims become even bigger, and it's just sort of a big snowball effect that happens. It's also interesting that these same questions are being asked. I mean, not interesting, more worrying that these same questions for a company that would have a 30-person IT department, 10 people in security, they might have one IT person who's responding to this and responsible for it also.
Exactly,
I mean, from our perspective, we don't expect most organizations to be able to do that themselves, so that's why organizations like ours exist to help that, let you outsource some of those requirements and, to be honest, save money in the long term of trying to do that in-house, because it's specialized, really activities you need to do and get the most bang for buck. So, I mean, in summary, if we, closing comments, Drew, around sort of the benefits of security versus trying to cover everything with insurance and attitudes towards security? Yeah,
I mean, well, in the past, it's sort of been one of those areas that's like, does the cost outweigh the risk? Where now it's more, they're seeing that the benefit is definitely there in coverage. And if you really want to cover everything off, it's a necessary part of your business operations.
Rather pay less premiums and not have a breach. That seems like a win-win situation.
Correct. Yeah, exactly right.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining me, Drew. That was a great conversation and follow up to the article. Hopefully, have some more coming up in the near future.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Awesome.